Hey, welcome, Sandra Broadhurst. Sorry, I've got a bit stumbled there because you've just returned to your original name, haven't you?
Mhm,
Um, Other people might know you as previously Sandy Humby, but you're now Sandra Broadhurst, which is your birth name.
mhm.
And you are a energy alchemist, and we will talk more about what that actually means. Welcome to Voices of Elevate. I also have Jodel here, who is my friend and equally a kind of goddess in your own right. But we're not talking about you today, so we won't talk about that. But Dee's with me because we would like to share a story that the three of us took part in last Friday. Because one of the things that you do, Sandy, is clear home spaces. And you
Mhm.
very kindly cleared my home, didn't you? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I reached out to you because I've been living in my home for 6 years, and I'd always knew that there was something not right about the energy there, and I've been talking about it for ages. I think the whole time that Dee's known me, I've been talking about it. I'm
Mm.
quite a homemaker. I'm very creative. I like to create a nice environment in my home, but I just couldn't do it in there. And every time I was moving about the house, whether it be cooking or trying to do housework, it always felt like I was in treacle. Things were going wrong. Every time I was in the kitchen, it was like I was being clumsy, but I knew that it wasn't me. And then there were times when the energy in the home reached poltergeist level, and pipes were breaking in the house. There was a lot to do with water, um, and eventually, I think the day before I messaged you, um, whoever was in my home had left the tap on in the kitchen and flooded the kitchen. And I know that it wasn't me because I hadn't used the tap the last time that I was in the kitchen. And then I reached out to you and you said it was all very common symptoms of energy that needed to be
Yeah,
shifted, didn't you?
yeah, absolutely. And what I've also found, as Gaia, as Mother Earth is expanding and upshifting her frequency, so the energies that are out of balance in our spaces are on the earth, or actually what we're holding within us, is coming more to the surface and becoming quite noisy. And for people like yourself who are sensitive to energy and work with energy, there's more discomfort coming up and also more awareness, because in my experience, these energies that are caught in the energetic grids of our homes and the earth are becoming more noisy. For
Mm.
those with eyes to see and ears to hear, to be able to support and help them to return home. Well,
Mm.
providing it's spirit energy.
Yeah,
And
and it's
mm,
interesting what you said about the whole frequency of it because I'm a practitioner and coach helping people raise their vibration by clearing
mm,
density in
mm,
their body and their mind and their in their lifestyle. And I always knew the home was a big part of that, but
mm,
actually this, since you've shifted it, like I felt it lift from me and how I'm interacting in my home and the knock-on effect that's having on my general frequency as well. So
yeah.
it's such important work if we're clearing the density right now.
Absolutely. And it's inner temple and outer temple. Whatever's going on here will outpicture in our spaces. So a house is like a relationship. When we show up to look at a house, there's a dance that goes on between the heart of the home and our heart. And we have a spectrum of vibration that is the sum total of the conscious and unconscious patterning that we hold within us, which is why so many of us are now really, really diving deep to clean up any residual storyline that might be hanging around on the inner landscape, because we know it's going to outpicture on the screen. It's got to, right? So when we're working with a house, which is also a relationship, when we go to buy a house, we'll either sync in harmony with the energy, or we will sit alongside it and then it can, it can be okay for 6 months, but then it will start to feel like, I don't feel at home. I
Mm,
don't feel like my home wraps its arms around me. And for me to feel safe, nourished, inspired, and energized to go back out and share myself in the world, there's a sort of energy going on in the
mm.
house.
And that's exactly what I was experiencing for
Mhm.
6 years, where
Yeah,
I just didn't feel at home in my home.
yeah,
You know, so
mhm,
yeah. So should we talk about what we did?
yeah,
Yeah. So you told me to create a mandala, didn't you, in my garden?
yes,
And even that was quite intuitive, because I kept thinking, oh, I'll do it in the back garden, because otherwise, what will the neighbours think? Um, but there was this block. I thought, no, it doesn't feel right in the back garden. It needs to be in the front garden. It needs to
mhm,
be in this part of the front garden. It was very interesting, and you felt into it as well, Dee, didn't you? You said, yeah, I'm not feeling the back garden either. So we went off for a little woodland walk, and we collected little bits and flowers and seeds and nuts and different things, and we made this mandala, and we did put roses in that too, didn't we? um there it is. Yeah, that's what we created in my front garden.
yeah, it's
um
beautiful.
yeah, we had yeah, all kinds of things in there. Some
Yeah.
dock flowers, and we even
And it
put
also
lentils.
created like a medicine wheel from the
Yeah,
center as well.
yeah. And it was just, that was very intuitive what we did, you know.
Mhm, mhm.
And then what did you, that we then sent you the photograph. I also sent you a drawing of the
Yeah.
outline of my house, didn't
Yeah.
we?
So, I've been doing this work for 25 years. So I was a couture wedding dress designer for 20 years. I had shops in Romsey and in Winchester. I worked with silk and antique French textile. But the last shop I had was an 1860s building that was that basement of my shop, with my collection, and then the workroom where I had the team working. And we moved into a shop with a spirit in the basement, and nobody would stay on the premises unless I was there. And the dresses, which were heavy, this is the 80s and 90s. The dresses were heavy to move along the rail, but they'd go and the shop doorbell would go. And it opened me out. I knew I wasn't to make wedding dresses forever, but I didn't know what I was meant to be doing. But that way showed me into a curiosity about space and our relationship to space. So I've had now 25 years of exploring that sense of relationship that we have with our spaces and the nature of the energies that hang around in spaces and impact our field and our lives actually. But so I've been developing this over the years. And in 2020, in 2010, I went off to the Alhambra in Granada in the end of April. It was rose time in Granada, and came back with all these photographs, which birthed a way of working with roses. And the roses, for me, are just pure love. They have no other agenda other than to guide us home to ourselves. So they're a journey of sacred homecoming. Now, you can look at that as homecoming here, but you could also look at this as homecoming to our spaces or homecoming in our connection to Mother Earth. So the way I've developed this is that when working with a client with their home space, there is also this possibility of then extending that out beyond the confines of the building into the land around and to be able to be in service to the community. So, in service to the story of the land that you live on, that this area. And so that development of that work has taken me to do work around the world, in Australia or through the States, Mexico, France, blah, 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 over the years. So what I asked you to do was to send me just a drawing of, excuse me, the phone is off, but it's buzzing for some reason. Anyway, an interesting
Mhm.
situation. Oh, it's gone. Good. So yeah, I asked you to send me just a hand-drawn plan of your house, just so that I knew that if I explained what I was finding, you would understand where the spaces were. We were speaking off the same hymn sheet, basically. So I said, if you can send me the drawing of the space, I can tune into the space. So I'm a self-taught dowser. I've been dowsing since '96. So I used to dowse for the semi-precious stones to go on the wedding dress bodices and things. So, this is all an ongoing development of and a refinement of the process. So there were two things that we were going to work with. One is the actual house, which I asked you to draw the plan, and the plan was sent to me, and I printed it out, and then I tuned in. What was the energy that was going on here that was creating a disturbance in your space? And the second part of the invitation was, would you be up for this? Would you be up for creating a mandala of love on your land that we would then work with for the village and for a bigger area of the landscape? And you went, yeah, I'm up for that. So that was that was really lovely. So I tuned in to the house, and what I found was that there was first off an older woman in spirit. Now there's two different types of energy that hang around in houses. In my lens, everybody that does this work does it differently. We have different pickups, different frequency bands that we pick up in, and different language. And over this 25 years, my expertise, if you like, is in earthbound spirit release. So I'm really aware that when someone comes to that last breath on the earth, if they are not significantly resolved within the heart, i.e., they've got heart trauma, which often will have one of the five main wounds to love, which is abandonment, betrayal, denial, judgment, and separation. These five wounds, and if you've got all five, you will often have rejection in the patterning as well. And we know from the Egyptian pantheon that Anubis weighed the heart against a feather at the time of passing. So we, in our process, ideally want to be completely resolved before we take that last breath. And then there is an absolute ease in the release of the spirit from the body to return home, right? And what I found from my wedding dress time, I listened to the story of all these women that came through my door. But once I had the spirit in the basement, when I tuned in on him, there was a really heavy chest, and I worked with women and for women, so I knew it was male. And he had died of emphysema, and he'd not wanted to leave his wife. So there was this whole piece of the trauma story that had anchored a fragment of his field in the shop in the basement. And so that was my first process in 1998 of releasing a spirit. And I was fascinated. I was working with the heart in one way, and the attractor factor of relationship for those 20 years. And then it was like, well, what's our relationship with our spaces? What is it? Why do some people go for healing and they come the next time and they get exponentially taken forward, and some people come back and it's Groundhog Day? So, I'm sort of explaining what the backstory is of why and how I pick up the energies. So when I look at its Groundhog Day, I know that it's either a toxic relationship or it's a toxic space that the woman or the man has come out of to have the healing session and has gone back into that space. And the toxicity of the space or the relationship is greater than the shift they've been able to make. So they turn up and, then you start all over again. So I was going back one step before doing one-to-one work to finding out what was the root of the discord. And sometimes with families that came for weddings, I would often, because we did big weddings, often go to the house in the morning to dress the bride and her mother and the bridesmaids and check, dad's cravat and waistcoat. There was the whole picture. So you'd get to see what made this woman, what was the foundation of nature and nurture. So when I came to check in on your space, the first thing I picked up was this older woman in the space who there was definite trauma, there was abuse, an abuse pattern running, both physical and sexual abuse. And I knew that wasn't the only one because I could pick up 3 spirit energies in the house. And then there were 2 younger energies that were, I sensed it was a daughter and a son-in-law. I didn't sense that it was a daughter and son, but that they were part of this story. They were part of the picture. And for what had happened in the house, they were all caught in the trauma story. And as I say, there's 2 types of energy that hang around in houses. One is spirit energy. It's had a life like you and I. It's come from the light. It's got a heart. And at the time of passing, there was significant unresolved, unhealed trauma in the heart field. So a fragment of the soul at the time of that last breath goes back to where the trauma happens. It doesn't hang about in hospitals or morgues or graveyards. That, for me, in my language, is entity energy. And entity energy is created through negative thought forms, trauma fields. It's created if it was created by anger, that's the note of it. If it was created by grief. So often in a lot of these places you'll find grief that is part of the picture. And old people's homes are terrible for this, in the fact that there is an active entity trauma field that is feeding on the weakness because the energy field's diminished. Right? So it's not necessarily a pretty picture. But anyway, in your space, there was this older woman and this male and female younger energies. And it was interesting because when I had that first conversation with you about it, and I said to you, who lived in the house before? And you said, I think there was an older woman. I hadn't told you what I'd picked
No,
up.
you hadn't.
You
No.
said there was an older woman that had lived there for some years. So that's what I worked with. So I knew that there was an active trauma field that was working on the spirit fragments that was caught in your space, that were part of the story of the house.
Mm.
And the whole thing was becoming active for you to do something about it. The noisier it got, and particularly water has always got an emotional aspect to it.
Well, a
So
couple of years ago, I actually felt someone grab the back of my head and push my head into the door. And I just burst into tears because I felt like I'd just been attacked. It was
mhm,
horrible.
mhm,
And it was around this kind of time of year as well, when the
mhm,
veils are thinner.
mhm.
And I thought there was definitely something
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
spirit of sorts, because that
yeah,
felt really, and people could argue, well, didn't you just bang your head into the door? But I actually felt it be taken out of position,
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so you
But
can be quite skeptical about these things until you have these experiences.
absolutely, and it's not something to take lightly either.
Mm.
What I found with poltergeist energy, and I trust absolutely that the work that I am brought is the work that is correct in alignment for what I can deal with. Whereas others might have a darker thread of spectrum of vibration that can deal with the deeper, darker
Mm.
aspects of this work, where the entity energy has become so dense and gloopy. Gloopy is the technical term.
I love
So,
that.
and I have been places where oh, it's a fabulous story. I had a holiday in the south of France, and while I was there, somebody that I'd only knew through Facebook who lives in the south of France had said, contacted me, and she said, "Oh, well, if you've got a day spare before you go home, do pop over. You're welcome to stay here." Anyway, I turned up at this place, and actually, before, as it started to get dark, I thought, whoa, this is really not good. And it turned out that there was an illicit party den that was underneath the building. Because as I sort of settled down, I was seeing, and I'm not clairvoyant, not much. I'm clairaudient and clairsentient. That's my clairs. Occasionally, I will be clairvoyant or have a clairvoyant vision. And I saw this dark-tailed being with red eyes looking at me. I'm like, I'm not liking this too much. I've got to stay here overnight. And I said, what's gone on in this place? Thinking that somebody who worked you know, with light and the Magdalene and all this would have had really clear space. And she said, oh, there was down underneath here. There's a party den. She said, and people used to come from Paris. I mean, we were down, near Montségur, right? We were in the south of France. She said they used to come from Paris for weekend parties. And I'm thinking, super. Thankfully, I'd had I travel with a space clearing kit, quite useful. Um, so I had to stop the idea of going to sleep and clear the space and then energetically seal the party den underneath from the apartment. Anyway, I don't get brought a lot of those. And also that when you start to looking at poltergeist energy, which, can get really tricky, where things get thrown across the rooms and so
it
on.
was getting
Getting
worse.
there.
It
I
was
know.
getting slowly worse, and
Yeah.
to the point where I was getting hurt, like
Yeah.
a glass bottle falling onto my bare foot, and
Hmm.
things like that, or knives dropping off. And I thought, oh my goodness. And in
Hmm.
fact, Dee, you were at my house before, weren't you? And something happened, and you tried to tell it to go away. Just go away. So she was a witness to the types of
Hmm.
things that were happening.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
so in my experience, poltergeist energy is created through uh, it's sort of puberty, adolescent sexual energy that starts to become troublesome in a space. So it becomes, so if you can imagine that somebody has a massive argument in a room. If somebody else walked into the room, you could cut the air with a knife,
Mm.
or the air was blue. So we feel this.
When you've walked into a room and a couple have had an argument,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
feel it, can't you? And you think,
yeah.
oh, I shouldn't be here.
So if that happens over and over again, that energy gets substance.
Mm.
And entity energy, whatever it is that it was created by, what the emotional storyline was that created the entity energy, that's what it's wanting more of. That's what it's wanting. It's gourmet dinner. So have had people that have said, I don't know why, but we always argue in that one room, nowhere else in the house. We've only
Mm.
got to go in there and it's fireworks. And you understand that the entity energies and the spirit energies lock into the vortexes and eddies around the crossing of energy lines. That's how they anchor into the space. And they are only interested in feeding, entity energy is only interested in feeding on the frequency of what created it. So if it was created by fear, it wants more fear. If it was created by anger, it wants more anger. If it was created through depression, it wants more depression. And it will do whatever it can to elicit that in you or in the spirit energies, if that's what it's feeding on. So,
Mm.
it's very so for me, in the way that I work, as I did with your property, in identifying the spirit energies that are in there, That's my first port of call. I don't do anything as you know, as you found out. Once I've tuned in and I know I've gathered my information, I know what's going on, then we have a conversation and I share with you what's going on, which is where you were able to say to me, well, actually, yes, there was this older lady in the house, and you know, and what else has been going on and what's felt uncomfortable and so on. So I can identify where, you know, where they are in the house, how they're moving around. Um,
Did you pick up on anything in my kitchen?
well, the spirit energies move in. They were, you know, based in through the sitting room, and they, you know, they were moving around because, you
Mm,
know, some with some spirit energies, they don't know they're spirits, right? They
mm.
think they're still living.
Like that film, The Others, with Nicole
Yeah,
Kidman.
yeah. Well, exactly. You know, they don't just stay in one place. They
Well,
move.
interestingly, my youngest son, he's going to be 10 in a couple of weeks. He is very sensitive to things. Um, and he used to say, I can't sleep in my room. I feel like someone's watching me.
Mhm,
And then the teenager brought it up, saying, when I said we'd cleared the house, and he
mhm.
was like, "Oh, you can sleep in your room." Charlotte, when you thought someone was watching you, they were. you know, that's what the teenager was saying, and it was like, wow. He always said it. He said, "I can't sleep in there." So, although he's nearly 10, he's been pretty much co-sleeping with me the whole
Mhm.
time we've lived in that house because he doesn't want to be in his room.
Yeah.
But since you've cleared the space, he's been sleeping happily in his room. So,
Yeah.
mm,
Interesting. You
yeah,
know, and this is the children are the best. They're the
yeah.
best.
Well, as
Yeah,
adults, we often don't believe in this kind of thing,
yeah,
and the
yeah.
children will say, "Oh, I'm scared in my room. There's something in there." And we say, "Oh, don't be silly. There's no such thing as ghosts. Go on, go
Mm,
and get." And we ignore it and kind of, uh,
mm,
and it won't get dealt with. And then it
yeah.
can cause all kinds of problems with the children, maybe with behavioral issues after what you've just said.
Mm,
Um,
absolutely. Do you know, one of the first jobs I did um, was up in, it was in Norfolk, I think, but it was a school with, that it was a Victorian school and infants school, and two little girls had gone into the girls' toilets and come running out and said to the teacher, "There's a man in there." And the teacher went in, you know, all guns blazing. There was only one door in and one door out, but there was no man in there. And you know, then when I tuned in on it, in the 50s there had been a paedophile that used to hang about at the gates, and when he was well, you know, he was well charted, it was known, right? Um, and but that's what I got, and they checked it, they, you know, checked the information, and that he was in spirit and was, you know, hanging around in the little
and
girls' toilets.
Oh, that's awful to think that paedophiles
Mhm.
continue being a paedophile on the other side, but
Of
now they're
course, you know, you just think of the
unseen.
trauma field that's running on the heart,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm.
But it was
Yeah.
also the school had been used in the war as a um, uh, almost like a hospital, a makeshift hospital. And so there was some really dense energies through the main hallway where they did, you know, their sports and where they did assemblies. So, you know, these spaces have got history.
Mm.
And it's, you know, I mean, if we go in slightly sensitive, would go,
Mm.
don't, you know, this doesn't feel so good. But you know, it's very, you know, all of these places have got, you know, have got history. I
Well,
mean,
it's interesting because since you've cleared the space and it's made me like really understand it so much more,
yeah.
it reminded me of my first flat that I had. Um, and I would be fine at work, I'd be fine out, and as soon as I stepped into my flat, I'd feel angry and stressy all the time. And I used to think, oh, is it the I used to think it was the energy of the estate that I lived on, actually.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I'm thinking maybe there was something specific in, and I was
Yeah.
very depressed when I lived there. very
Yeah,
depressed. Like I could never get out of bed, and for no
yeah,
particular reason, but I would often spend days in bed, and my mum
yeah.
would visit and say, "Are you ill again?" And it
Mhm.
wasn't that I was ill. I just was weighed down,
Yeah,
and I'm
it's
wondering if that
yeah,
was a lot to do with
absolutely.
the
You'll often,
space.
yeah, you'll often find, multi-occupancy houses will often have a huge issue because they weren't necessarily, as some of the houses weren't constructed as multi um, uh, occupancy houses. I remember working on a house just in Twickenham. I mean, we're talking 15, nearly 20 years ago now, where actually a psychotherapist had bought the property from the council. And every room had been a single dwelling for a home, not exactly a homeless person, but for somebody that needed, to have some degree of care from the council. The energies in there were just shocking because,
Mm,
we process at night. So if somebody's living in a small room and, it's just basically a bed and a chair and a table, all of their processing is contained in that one place. And also, properties that have been turned into flats, into multi-dwelling properties, the different apartments haven't got the heart. Where's the
mm,
heart of the because when they were built, when the architect designed that, the building is ensouled. It has a heart. But often in those places that have been built, split into apartments, only one of the apartments will have a heart.
interesting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there was a big job that I did 5 years ago in a property that was behind the Royal Albert Hall, a very big property that had been gutted in the 80s with only the facade. It was a Georgian property, so the facade was left. The actual rest of the property was demolished and then it was rebuilt. But the heart was hanging about outside. It wasn't in the building, and actually the couple ended up divorcing. And then my client bought the property. And there was there was some fascinating stories that came from that, because actually a property, although it's been demolished, the energetic structure still remains. So whatever's held is held in the matrix.
Mm,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
this is one of the things about the Twin Towers.
Mm.
That, and actually, I got to do some work on that last year too.
Oh, did you?
Mm. Yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
knew I
wow.
was going to do work on that. And I've known for 24 years that there was work for me to do on it. And for
Wow.
nearly a year, I was working remotely with an architect in Manhattan, dowsing all of his properties, and working the energies for the floor plans. Um, and actually, on one of the trips over to work with him, he drove me down to Ground Zero and I knew I had work to do there. And then
Mm.
through um, a, a connection with someone who lives just 2 blocks up from the site, who didn't live there then, but does now, and who's been doing some training with me with the Mandalas of Love. Um, yeah, we were able to create Mandalas of Love around the memory pools, and it was just the most amazing experience.
Yeah, beautiful.
So,
Yeah.
this is when we've got, a trauma field that is, 3D, right? It's not just on the earth. And there's another job that I did in New Jersey, in a property in New Jersey, which had been burnt down. It was a barn that had been burnt down and a house had been built on it. But there was still an energy that was playing out in the basement, the storyline of what had happened and a lot of people had died in this
Mm.
barn fire because it was an illicit drinking den, and the priest had come along and shut the doors,
Mm.
and an oil lamp had got knocked over, and they'd all been burnt.
Well, that's just made me think about all the churches that were burnt, with the Cathars. I mean, there were
Yeah.
thousands that the
Yes.
Catholics killed,
Yeah.
wasn't there?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there must be those were whole villages, weren't they? Would
Yes.
take refuge in the church, and then it would be set alight.
Yeah.
So
But that's the story that I told with my video with Pam Gregory, which
right.
is on the front page of my website. The link's on the front page of my website. But that was a 4-day journey with her, unraveling a story of a house that she bought, just randomly bought, that held the storyline of her life as a Cathar Perfecti and her
Mm.
connection to the Chateau of Tam.
I've because I do past life regressions with people. I've had so many coming that were Cathars, and it makes
Yeah,
sense that in our
yeah,
circles where we
yes,
are healers and
yeah,
intuits and everything else, that we
yeah,
would have come from that line. I'm
yeah,
seeing when I see the Cathars or descriptions of what I'm going that they
yeah,
were, it's always people that are kind of our kind of vibe. Do you
yes,
know what I mean?
absolutely. And you'll find that a lot of the Cathars have had, well, certainly a similar incarnational storyline to me that runs from Lemuria into Atlantis, into Egypt, into the
Mm.
Essenes,
Yeah, I've had
Sufis,
past life
Cathars.
visions from all those places as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah,
But it's a
yeah,
thread, it's a soul thread. And it's like you were
right.
saying to me that your middle name is Marie.
Yeah, and yours is
This
too.
mine is too. So, there's
Yeah.
the connection to the Mary line,
Mm.
and that's got the connection to the rose,
Oh,
which is
okay.
why the rose, um, and this work that I've developed over the years, is so connected with the purity of the heart, which is what the Cathars were. They were known as the pure
Mm.
ones.
Yeah.
So they followed very much, the Magdalene teachings.
And they
And
didn't they didn't eat but they were mostly vegetarian, weren't they?
mhm,
And that kind of
mhm,
thing, and healers and things and
yeah, and the honoring of the masculine and feminine. They
mm,
worked, and they were
with
always in
both.
partnership.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean, how
do.
anyone can be
Mhm,
Catholic after knowing what happened.
yeah. Well,
It's not very holy, is it?
it's, no, and I'm sure we'll find out more as
Yeah.
time goes on as to what's
Yeah.
been hidden. But the um, if you're looking at the Master Yeshua and Mary and what that whole storyline was about the sacred union and the balance of the masculine and feminine, because when we balance masculine and feminine, there is a third energy that's birthed within us, which is the divine child. And whether
Mm,
we birth a child, it takes the masculine and the feminine to birth the child,
yeah.
or whether we're birthing a business, or whether we're birthing a direct line to source, this is where the magic is of all of
Mm,
this. But it requires us to come home to the heart and the home to love, which for me is what the rose is that's her calling.
mm.
you
I
know
love
it,
that because a lot of us are really tapped into the cacao for the heart energy, but
yeah,
it's really
yeah,
nice to know,
yeah,
to work with the rose as well,
yeah,
and that there must be
yeah.
more. Um,
So if we go back to your
yeah,
your
because I'd really like
consult,
to talk about the
yes,
process of what we
yeah,
did,
yeah.
because it
So
was
in the tuning in, as I say, there were three spirit energies. And for me, it's taking away the gourmet dinner first. So my priority before I start anything else, so obviously we had the conversation and I shared with you what I found. So then I work to connect with each of the souls or the soul fragments first. And I've developed over the years a process of doing that, and being able to, um, work with the soul to release from that connection through the love, through the rose, through the heart, through compassion and kindness. So all of my work in that spirit release form is based on compassion and kindness. So I connect my heart to the heart of the soul, And if they've got a story that they want to tell, then there's time to listen. Um, and mostly I find that once I've made the original connection with them and they know that I've seen them, it's like they're packing their suitcases ready to go. It's like there's, they know that they're complete. They, when a spirit fragment goes back to where the trauma happened, they're waiting to be seen and heard, just like us. We want to be seen and heard. And that's really over all of these years and hundreds of consults and hundreds of spirit release processes. That sacred witnessing is what allows the spirit energy to feel seen
Mm.
and at peace.
Well, we know how that feels for us, don't
Yeah,
we? Just having a space hold, someone listening to you
yeah,
process, and then it's done, isn't it? You don't
yeah,
need to have
yeah.
closure with any heart issue or anything. It's just
No,
about
no,
being seen in it.
yeah.
Mm.
So in that sacred witnessing, the spirit, I can track the spirit leaving, and can calibrate the space anyway. Um, so I worked, it was the older woman that wanted to go first. So I connected in and released her. And the couple actually wanted to go together. I don't often get that.
Mm.
But so there was something about the story, and there was a feeling of regret that I was aware of that was so there was something that they perpetrated, my sense, on the older woman, that there
Mm.
was that created the trauma drama that
Mm.
connected the three of them together, and that the two then released. Um, and I could feel that energy clear, and I check and check again, is there any more residual energy left in the space that needs to be attended to? No. And then I've got another process where I work, well, until 2020, all my work was done in person. So I would travel to do the consults in person. Um, 2020 meant that I took my work online and developed new skill
Mm.
set, but it meant I could work
Which was
around the
quite
world.
fun. It was quite fun for us, Steve, wasn't it? Because you sent me some incense, didn't you? What was
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've got one of those little, that they have in church where you light
Yes.
it.
Sensor. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a mini one, so we lit it, and I was doing it anti-clockwise with a little. I've got this little shaking pod,
It's perfect.
and then, but before you said to do that, um, you said that you were going to open it up between this time and this time, and then for us to do the incense from that time onwards. But I just got this intuitive thing. We started just singing, didn't we? And I was like, on your merry way, like clapping around the
Yeah.
house. I just
Yeah.
felt, but we were being, it was, but quite comical, but not comical, like jovial,
Yeah.
um, like childlike almost. Like
Yeah.
we're claiming this space back now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and clapping. And then I looked, and you said, "Have you got a shaker or something?" And I thought, yes, but I intuitively knew to clap.
Yes,
Like
but if
clearing
you
the
look at it from a
space.
feng shui perspective, they will often clap into the corners because it says that,
Yeah.
it is that the sticky, heavy
The
energy
energy
gets
gets,
caught in
yeah.
corners, right?
Mm.
So you clap in the corners. I mean, when I go visit somebody, I take what looks like I'm moving in. I've got a suitcase that little
Yeah.
roll-on
Like Mary
suitcase that I take in
Poppins.
with different rattles and shakers, and because actually this is your property,
Mm.
right? So if anybody says to me, well, I'll leave you the keys, can you go and clear my space? No, it's
Mm.
your story.
Yeah.
If I go in and do that, you're not going to recognize the space and you're not going to have cleared it through you. So the benefit with you in it, you actually doing that bit with you, is that was already also clearing through your field.
Mm.
So as the house shifted, you were shifting, and so therefore the resonance with the cleared house was already in process.
Mm.
So
Yeah. And
it is really important that you engage.
yes. And it was really good. And Dee said to me, why did I invite her? And I said, I just felt like I needed somebody else there. And me and Dee always do things like this together anyway, and it felt good. But um funnily enough, the whole time that I've been in that house, I'm a very sociable person, and I've always been a host. And I host events and I do all of that, but I haven't really hosted at my house because I haven't felt like I wanted to. It didn't feel like a nice energy to bring
Mm-hmm.
people into. So even to have Dee there and doing it with a friend and actually creating the space that it can be my social hub again, where
Yeah.
I can start hosting things again because it feels nice.
Yeah.
Um, but what else are we doing, Dee?
Oh,
Oh,
I just unmute myself.
oh,
I've been sat quietly. Um, so yeah, obviously you were dancing around and clapping. There was one moment which really stood out when we first started the clearing, when you said that Sandy had opened the space. And I was stood in the lounge and you'd gone upstairs, and I just felt this like a real like wave of emotion just sort of came over me at that particular point, and that felt quite significant. I mean, I'm quite new on this journey of intuitive and feeling into things, but it didn't feel like it was my emotion. It felt like sort of emotion coming through, and then you were dancing and singing, so I thought, oh, I need to do that to not attach any energy to me.
Yeah.
And then I started singing. I started to tone a bit when I've been doing circles and things like that. Um, so I started singing and you were dancing around, and it felt quite, like you say, quite jovial and joyful. Um, but it was, I've witnessed Jenna going through this process and had like voice notes of you actually like really not hysterical, but like really scared because something had just dropped on your foot with a big bruise on your foot. And obviously you
Mm-hmm.
told me the story about your head being bashed into the door. um and even when you were in the kitchen and I came to your house and we were, I was washing up and something fell out of the cupboard, didn't it, that time?
Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, it was really bizarre for me because I'd said, you told me that you were doing it and you'd been asked to create this mandala and you were going to clear the property, and I was just sat at home thinking, what an honor to be able to hold space for the souls that we can't see anymore. It's like another level of holding space for people. And I said, what an honor to do that. And then you asked me to come along, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't think on this Friday I was going to end up being a ghostbuster. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow. And it just felt so special. And it just felt so like the unseen, that it's not something that you would put out there on Instagram, or there's a lot of that kind of thing. It just felt so special to be able to be in that, to be in that space and go through that process with you. So thank you for asking me. It did feel very special.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because you said we could open from the mandala, you opened like a light chimney. Is that what you called it? And we kept that open for 3 days, didn't
Yeah,
we?
but there's two different parts to this job,
Hmm.
because after I completed the clearing, I then created a mandala that sat on your plans.
Yeah.
So it's based on the Venus grid. So that was set onto the plans as well. But then I shuffled and allowed the roses to tell me which of the roses wanted to be on this grid. And it's interesting because this is the rose of sacred union. This is the weave of masculine and feminine and the golden flame. And that was one that came up first in my process. But it's got rose quartz on it, and it's got a unit in the center which has got a pyramid and it's crystal, and it's got the four directions on it. So that's what went on your plans to highly activate your space. So that incense I sent you is it will clear a space and leave a vacuum unless you do something with it. So, you know, when I've been working on site with people, I will, you know, I'll invite them to go around the house and sing. So it's interesting that you were doing that. And, you know, sometimes if, you know, I'll take crystal bowls with me, or I've got a Tibetan heart bowl that I will sometimes use as well. But it's really important that you fill the space with positive energy and high frequency sound. And I've found that working remotely, I can create a rose grid and place it over your plans. And that then, again, Spirit told me that that wants to be left for 72 hours. So it's like embedding the pure love frequencies of the rose into the space. So that's one part of the job. The second part of the job was when I said to you, would you be up for making a mandala on the ground, so that we could clear the energy in your community, but also it clears it on a 3-mile radius from the point of the mandala.
Yeah, so anyone listening, we've cleared Winterslow, Pitton, Farley, Grimsteads, Porton. You know, you're welcome.
Absolutely. So what you did was you created this fabulous grid in your front garden and photographed it and sent it to me. I then print this out, and I then create a mandala with the roses and the rose dragons, and this is what I created. So the center point here is actually the highest frequency rose in the set of the 72 roses, and this is a pure iridescent stream of God consciousness. So what I'm doing is working with the medicine wheel, and then the roses, and then with organic rose petals that I dry from the garden here, and then crystals. And the crystals come, you know, they tell me what wants to be on there. They, you know, and the roses and the crystals work really well, because crystals come trigonal, cubic, you know, hexagonal, octagonal, amorphic, but they don't come as in pentagram form. And the rose is pentagram. She is the same proportion as the growth proportions of our body and the growth proportions of nature. So I then create this, which then gets placed on top of the picture of the mandala, and I anchor the two together. And then I have got a team of 12 on the light realms that work with me in this work, and I connect in with them and pull down a chimney of light. And that chimney of light I then send out on a 3-mile radius from where the location of the mandala is, with the invitation for any earthbound spirits who can see the light and that wish to release, to move towards that chimney of light and go home.
And how many spirits chose to go through?
92.
92, wasn't it?
92 souls went through, and the earliest one was from 1689. It's a female, 89. There were 36 children and 3 souls that had taken their own lives. So it's just fascinating. Now, you see, the first time I ever did this was back in about 2006, 2007. And I was supporting my ex-partner, who was teaching feng shui at Westminster Uni in London. And he said, would you come and support me? And I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, so I'm stood at the back of the classroom while he's up the front doing his thing with the students. And I'm gazing out the window, and there was another piece of my clairvoyant bits that come and go. I realized that I was on the site of a bombed out hospital in the war, and I could see the operating room, and I could see the dead bodies and you know, the other gruesome bits that were hanging out of this. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do with this? Right? Nearly 20 years ago now. And I got absolute clarity. Create a chimney of light. Just create a chimney of light in front of you, and just open it out for them to come in. And so he was at the front of the classroom doing all this stuff, and I stood at the back with these spirit energies coming in and going up through this chimney of light. And I'm like,
and could you see them?
no, I could feel them. It's a sense thing for me. And it's like that story with Pam, where there were the souls that she'd led out of the Chateau of Tam to this location where her house was, or the house she'd bought in France. And, you know, the spirit energies were waiting for her, you know, to release them. So, you know, that it's a sense. It's a finely perceived sense of what's going on. So yes, and you know, and then once, and again, that was activated once that energy went out, and I very clearly said this portal is only open for 72 hours. It's like, get a wriggle on. If you want to leave, go. Because with the earth, with the
I was worried that there would be some late arrivals and they'd just be hanging around in my garden, like,
tough.
You'll have to come back.
But it's like, you know, I just trust that everybody that needs to release will release in that time. And actually they tend to go in the first 24 hours. So there's another 2 days where the stragglers will go. But you know, to be that, you know, once I've calibrated it afterwards, you know, it's fascinating. It just,
I was sat in because I went out for dinner that night, the first night, and I come back about 9:30 when it was dark and kind of walked past this mandala thinking, I wonder who else is in my garden with me right now. And then I was in the house, I kept being so aware that was going on. But it felt like really important work, and it felt like a really good thing to do.
And the main thing is, you know, to know that actually once the soul has had the opportunity to release, it cannot take entity energy into that chimney of light. Entity energies weren't created by the light. You can't send them to the light. You know, these people that say, oh, you know, I sent the entity to the light. It's like, you can't do that. You know, the entity energy needs to atrophy because it's got no gourmet dinner. If everybody could live in the frequency of love 24/7, nobody would get sick, but there would be nothing for an entity to feed on. An entity can only feed on you if you have got the frequency running within you that is a frequency match, which is why pubs and clubs are riddled with energy.
And I've seen it since I've been sober. I've watched one energy move through different people. I just sat there watching it, and you'd see them react and act and cry or whatever. Then it would go to the next one. You'd see them react, and I thought, it's literally moving through everybody. It's so interesting
because it's looking for dinner. Right? So when it finds dinner, it will often latch on and go home with the spirit energy. And the thing is, with things like pubs and clubs where people are drinking, the energy field gets porous.
Well, there's a lot of people once you know, like you know, when you don't drink alcohol and you are eating high vibrational food and raising your frequency, you can't even stand to be in those environments anymore. And I used to be so comfortable. I manage bars and clubs, and now I can't. You know, I find it really difficult to step into those places. And I think lots of people feel that too. And that's why
it's a frequency thing.
You
know, because actually if you're working with light and this is, when we're talking about light, we're talking about a cellular light quotient, you know, with these higher keys and codes of light that are available to us, that are upshifting our consciousness. And if we are moving from a carbon-based body to a crystalline body as part of this ascension process, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to hold that light at a cellular level in the body, there is you know, there is no attraction to be in that denser environment. It's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. So it's really important for those of us that are working within the healing arts to have spaces that really do support us. And I think it's also why a lot of people have either their relationships are broken down or they're choosing to remove themselves. You know, when the Rose Dragon set came through in my journey into Somerset, um, and I connected with them at Borough Mump on the Michael Mary line. When they birthed, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with two sets of, you know, roses? They're very different. I heard very clearly that, you know, we are mandalas of love. But, you know, our birth families are mandalas of love, often that are giving us big learnings. You know, it's like they are loving to the soul's evolution, even if it's not necessarily comfortable.
Doesn't feel like it at the time.
No.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is for us now to have, you know, families of frequency. So in those families of frequency where we are seen and we're honored for the unique gifts that we bring, you create something that is greater than the sum of the parts. And I think that this is really what this work is about. It is about us being able to be the very best version of ourselves and to feel supported in our homes to be that. And actually, for me, the work with the mandalas of love on the land is earth service. You know, it is about assisting Mother Earth. She doesn't want this density on her mantle any longer.
Yeah, it's such important work, and I can't be grateful enough because the shift of energy in my home. You know, just this weekend I was potting around clearing space in my bedroom and creating nice little spaces, and it was like, oh, I remember this version of me that's been completely blocked for the last 6 years. It was like, oh, this feels really nice. I'm really enjoying homemaking my house, and my child's able to sleep in his bed, and I haven't had one accident in the kitchen the whole time. I mean, this was daily. I'd open a kitchen cupboard, glasses would fall out and smash. You know, the amount of crockery and glasses that have broken, I can actually go shopping for more now. I know I've got confidence they're not going to smash now.
But the thing is, you know, how would those souls have got your attention otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. Because my adult son is staying with me at the moment, and he said, "Well, how come it wasn't happening to me?" And I said, "Well, your energy's too dense. There's no way you'd pick up on what was needed." But more than how I'm feeling in the space, I've known for so long that the house was my energetic block. That was what was weighing down at my frequency. And I said to you, didn't I said, oh my god, I'm going to be unstoppable now. I'm just going to be such a woman in my power now that, because I could feel it. I could feel that even like organizing the festival or doing anything, I've been doing it at home and everything was
Like treacle.
not flowing, and I knew that I was capable of everything because I've done it all before, but it's just been so difficult. And yeah, like you said, it's in treacle, whereas I've now created an office at home.
How can you elevate from treacle?
Exactly. So all the little, it just goes to show that you could be eating the right food and thinking the right way, but if you haven't cleared your space, it's a massive, I mean, I can't tell you, the shift is huge. It was such a weight. And that already, just a week later, I'm really noticing a difference in my whole external world and my internal world. I just, even getting up in the morning was lighter. Like, oh, not waking up and just being in that house. I always used to feel like, oh, maybe I should move. And, you know, just this house, it's cursed, I used to say, you know, because everything was going wrong with the waterworks. plumbing issues, the shower doesn't work, the downstairs toilet broke, all the tumble dryer, the washing machine, it was everything, you know, and they were new, and they were still breaking or not working properly, or something.
But how else would they get your attention?
Yeah. And now it's all like, oh, harmonious.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't be more grateful to both of you for that, for supporting that, because
it's I tell you what, it's very interesting. You know, in the training program that I run, when I'm telling people about this, you know, teaching them about the space clearing process, and you know, how to read a space, energetically, and that first go round of a space, I always suggest that they have a friend with them. Don't do it alone.
Yeah.
You know, because there is something that is really, that it's really beautiful to have.
Well,
that kind of
interestingly as well,
support.
when they left, I felt a slight loss.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre. They've been causing me havoc all this time.
Yeah,
But it
but
was
you've
like,
lived with them. You've cohabited for 6 years, right?
Yeah, I actually felt this little loss, like, oh, I sort of miss you now.
No.
Honestly. So yeah, so you train people in this?
Yeah, I mean, I've woven it all
Might be
into
interested.
you know, a Mandalas of Love program now. So
Right.
currently I've got a group that I'm taking on an inner pilgrimage with the Celestial Rose Dragons. So we're on a 6-month pilgrimage, equinox to equinox. And then summer solstice 2026, I do the next go round of the Mandalas of Love training to teach people how to create mandalas to heal the heart, the heart of home, and to be able to create these mandalas and create the chimneys of light on the earth. And I had a group of 35 that went through last year, and another 22 that went through the second level. So I've split it into 2 levels, and that I'm continuing to hold space for them on a monthly basis, and they're doing amazing stuff. You've got somebody that's working in Mexico. I've got somebody else that's working in Australia. I've got somebody that's working in Germany. Somebody else that is working with water. So somebody else here in the UK that's been working with the Vatican and with the
Like you
City of
said, you know,
London.
as the earth frequencies are shifting, you
Yeah,
know, and we need to clear density. This is what I
yeah,
keep spouting about. We need to clear it from our bodies, but
yes,
we need to clear it from the land.
yes,
And if you,
absolutely.
and so it's such important work you're doing. If you're you know, you've got lots of little minions now
Well,
going out and clearing.
there is, but you know, I did have a whole period. Well, it still is. I was brought a very interesting job in Switzerland this week, but I've been doing a lot of work with different places in the States. I started off actually working with the Micmac people up in Nova Scotia, because I had a client that came to me that had a problem with her property. And she was one of the first ones that actually created a mandala of love on her land to release the trauma field of the Micmac and what happened to them. I
Yeah,
mean,
there
their
must have been
writing
loads.
is like light language. It's just extraordinary. Their script, because I love doing the research. So when I get a
Yeah.
job, I do a lot of research on the land and the area. But that was an extraordinary job. And another job that I did was over in Spokane in Washington State, and I was contacted by a lady that works with the community there, and they've got so much alcohol and poverty in Spokane, but the Spokane tribe were um, were starved out by its settlers, by the white people in the 1800s, and they took all of the horses that were owned by the Spokane tribe, herded them up into a corral. So there were about 800 horses, and they slaughtered them all in a day.
Oh my
So
God.
the Spokane River was running red.
Oh.
and there's a memorial
And it
to it
wasn't
on
even
the
that
land.
long ago. And
No,
it's just horrifying, isn't
it's
it? What
shocking. And of course,
the white
the
men did.
warriors, this became warriors. Their hearts are with their horses.
Yeah.
So the trauma field
Mm.
was epic, and it almost felt like there was a curse type energy that was playing out. And so the lady that I had connection with in the township, she went to the memorial and created a mandala for me, photographed it and sent it to me. And I created the rose mandala here and activated it in the same way that I did with yours. And it just was extraordinary. The whole process was just amazing. And there has been a shift in the town. There's been the council have been much more open to make some changes, whereas everything was log jammed. So the subtlety of the work. And I worked with the Chumash people that are down in Santa Barbara. They were called the Shell people. And there is a burial ground, a sacred burial ground there that the realtors are trying to get hold of because it's such prime real estate right on the shore. And I had ended up with a client who lived a little bit inland. And I said, would you be open to do a mandalas of love? Because they had a beach house close to this piece of land. And that was just an amazing process because it turned out that their property was just 3 miles radius away
Wow.
as the crow flies to this burial ground. And as I did that process, the tribal elder came to me and thanked me for the work because he said that his peoples no longer needed to be anchored on the earth plane to remind people of man's inhumanity to man, because we were going through such a big change cycle that their souls didn't need to be locked into the trauma grid. And in the release of them and for them to return home, they'd completed their mission, they'd completed their work in just keeping the memory of what had happened and how they were put in missions and their language taken away and their sense of themselves as the Shell people. So, this has been my work, right through the States. And I ended up also with a job in just outside of Brisbane, working with the Aboriginal template there as well.
Wow.
And several of the jobs that have come up have had connection into the Cathars. But I just have sat quietly doing this. Not, there's nothing, anything big shakes on the radar.
Yeah, well, interestingly, my gift is seeing other people's purpose, other people's, and I see you. I know you write books anyway, but there needs to be one of these stories because they're fascinating, and I think people should be reading about it. And when you're speaking, it's just incredible. They're incredible stories that you don't hear often. And you are doing such important work for all of us. So thank you for that. And it definitely, I want to see a book, please.
And it's interesting. I was
stories.
speaking to somebody else that contacted me, a lady called Sandy Sedgebeer, who does some interesting podcasts with interesting people too. And she, like you, is sees people and what they should be doing.
Yeah, this is what you should be doing.
And she said the same. So
there you go. Reinforced.
It's hours in a day, isn't it? But I do feel, I feel you're right. And I think I've been on the edge of it for 2 or 3 years. but I've not carved out the time, the focus to do it. And I'm really feeling that's a really important piece for this next 6 months.
Yeah,
So
just write it like each chapter a different clearing that you've done. You know,
yeah.
just would be a wonderful read.
And I think also the actually having the Mandalas of Love website live, which it should be in the next 2 or 3 weeks,
Okay.
speaks really more clearly to the work that I offer than anything else that I've had as a website up till now. So
that's your website, and it will be ready in the next couple of weeks.
yeah, so it's mandalasoflove.com, but that it's not live yet.
But if I put a link under this
yeah,
podcast, people can see it, and by the time
yeah,
they watch this, it might be ready.
Yeah, and the main website is rosealchemy.com.
And have you got any other socials to share?
Yeah, there's a Facebook page, but honestly, at the moment, I'm less inspired by Facebook than anything else.
It's got a very, when we talk about these low energies, it's that, isn't it? I can feel it. Every time I'm on it, I'm like in a pub and I just go on post and I get out.
Yes.
Whereas Instagram has a higher vibe.
Well, I'm trying to get
why.
my head around Instagram because I'm not very tech enabled, and actually I've got no idea how to create a reel or do anything like that. So
I'll have to hold a lesson for you and Clara, because I'm always helping Clara with things as well.
it's just,
and you're all women that are just so like years ahead of most of the people that are on Instagram. You've got so much wisdom and experience to share. Whereas right now, there's influencers that are just toddlers in the capacity of what they're doing compared to what you are doing. But all the ladies I know of your generation, you've got so much wisdom, you've got so much experience, but you cannot work out the tech, so it's being wasted.
No, it just, and I just haven't got the bandwidth to take anything else on. I've got clients, I've got children and grandchildren, I've got, and the groups. And really, and product, because I've got the the Oracle and the Rose Dragon set. So it's a lot to be juggling, but I do recognize there needs to be a refinement and a shift. So I hear you with the book, and I have got hundreds of stories,
and you've got your cards as well, haven't you? You've got books and cards and all kinds of things. Have you got them to show?
Well, I've got there's a book that goes with the Rose Alchemy, Rose Oracle, and have I got and I've got a book. There we are. There's the book that goes with the Rose Dragons, but these are channeled messages from Mother Mary and the Rose Dragons, they're beautiful little cards, and they're wisdom teachings. Then they're not a divination oracle really, although I do a rose reading for the new and full moon on YouTube.
You have a YouTube channel?
Yes.
What's that?
Good question.
I'll find it and I'll put it in. I'll put all your links. I'll put underneath here so people can find you.
Okay. And this is the Rose Oracle. So
I love the gold trim on those.
See, but I just followed what they told me. They told me that they had to be gilded, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. So yes.
Amazing. Oh, well, thank you for speaking to us today. I feel like I could have you on here again, because you were talking about other things. I thought, oh, well, that's another conversation. So, yeah, well, thank you both for coming on here today, Dee and Sandy, and for helping me feel at home in my home.
Beautiful. Good result, as they say.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Dee.
Thank you.
Bye.